Okay, we know that we are the last panel, and if some other people have said already that they have the privilege of having other speakers in front of us, just imagine now how privileged we are, as we are really the last panel. So please first let me say thank you to Gertrude, Natalia, and Susanne also for inviting me here to be with you. It's of course very pleasant. I see many familiar faces after all these years, but also I see many new faces, which I think it's very healthy for this community. So I'm very glad to be with you today. I would like to invite in the panel the three panelists that we have today with us. So it's Raf BUYLE. Please, if you want, you can take your seat. From the Information Agency in Flanders. It's Norbert HOHN from the Publications Office, the EU Publications Office in Luxembourg. And last but not least is Francesca GLERIA from the Autonomous Region of Trento. So thanks a lot for being here with us. So what is the topic of this panel? First of all, with regards to the process, it will be a slide-less panel, so no slides there. So if you sit back and lay a little bit behind and close your eyes, we all know that you are reflecting deeply to what the speakers are saying here, and there are no slides, so don't concentrate on the slide walls. So what is the topic? We will discuss about a problem that has been mentioned a couple of times already, or perhaps more during the day, but also for a possible solution, not a theoretical one, but one that is actually implemented nowadays by some pioneering regions in Italy and in Belgium. So what is the problem? The problem is that although we have huge amount of information that is already available, and we know this, and information coming from the public sector, in websites, in base registries, in many different systems. So despite the fact that we have all this huge amount of information, and despite the fact that the whole open data, policy, rhetorics, call it whatever you want, has already motivated people to publish even more information online, so we have really we are targeting to 1 million data sets to be available at the European level sooner or later. So if you check the European data portals, you will see some impressive numbers. So despite this fact, it is still very difficult for people to find what they are looking for, and it is even more difficult for people to really aggregate, process, and get some meaning of all this information and data that exists out there. So what should we do? So, take into account the problem. One theoretical solution could be we could use the same technology, but obviously this is not something that we want, not at all. We don't want it at the regional level, much more at the national level, and it's completely out of question, this discussion at the European level. So, what we could do perhaps is to work a little bit more with standards, something that we are still premature, something that we still see it now happening. I would say that this is rather normal because this is a new field, so this is a new area for standardization that did not exist 10 or 20 years back. So as the technical standards have given us all this nice environment that we can use our mobiles everywhere in the world, we can use different kind of printers, etc. With the technical standards, now with semantic standards and data standards, we can start exchanging information in a meaningful way and much easier. So the idea is how to promote the use of data standards and how to use these data standards to publish information so that it is much easier to reused by third parties, etc. Okay, so as I said, we have two regions here, two European regions, and we have also an EU institutions having a particular role in this. You will understand what is the role of the Publications Office. I would like to start immediately the discussion with our panelists with the first question, which goes to Raf. which is the basic question. Why you have decided to jump into this journey, to annotate semantically your websites? What is the motivation for you?
Well, thank you, Vassilios. Today, citizens are already consuming government information and services on private platforms. For example, when you search for a museum in the city of Ghent in Belgium on Google, then Google will show structured results on the right-hand pane, so on the right hand of the search results, showing information about the address, information about the opening hours, and other structured information. Other examples, if we look to digital assistants, such as Siri by Apple and Cortana by Microsoft, we see that these are good examples of private platforms, private initiatives that are already reusing government information about public services, which is maintained within their knowledge graph. We expect in the future there will be more crawlers. It will increase very quickly, and they will scrape the web for structured information. So as public administrations, we have to create the circumstances to safeguard the quality of our valuable information, and allowing and even enabling the private partners, the third parties, to adopt and reuse our authoritative information, which is often in base registries. Because we believe that the information in base registries, it's like a fundamental footprint for government. You could compare it to as DNA for living organisms.
Okay, thank you for this. And Francesca, what is your view on this? Why Credo has entered this journey?
Yes, we are sharing quite the same insight of the Ralph is telling, starting from a different point, from a different territorial situation, because Trentino is a very small territory, 500,000 inhabitants with 177 municipalities. And if you are a small municipality or a small region, you have to find out a way to go across any kind of border. This is a natural way need. So we start to work together at our level in a provincia and municipalities consortium. The consortium since long time, is offering scalable solution. One of these is a portal, an open source platform for municipalities portal. So we are working and put a lot of information inside portal from different point of public administration to very different level. So, this means that portal is also connected with all big changes in public sector. Last changes like transparency, open data, participation, online services. So it means that portal are all connected. All these topics are connected with this first point of contact between governments and citizens. So data inside portal are very important. So we have to try to enrich that information. And so we met ISA² and Flanders.
Okay, thank you. Let's discuss a little bit now on the how part. Now that you have explained what was the main motivation for participating in this, then how exactly are you trying to do this so that we give also some insights to different people and organizations that are here?
Well, we are semantically marking up the content of the network of public portals in Flanders. So with this strategy, we aim to promote our public sector information, structured information, and to create leverage to adopt this core information in private sector initiatives. So to adopt the data and also the unique identifiers in private sector initiatives. So what do we aim for? Well, imagine if you would search on Google for instance, for a building permit, then you will get structured results. Results which are derived from the structured data on public portals. So you search for some information and you would get a link immediately, directly to the online form for application, a link to get an appointment with your local authority, a link to regulations, and even a link maybe benchmarking several municipalities. Now, what is our approach? Well, we are annotating our portals with the standards from schema.org, which is widely adopted by a lot of search engines. Also, we enrich our portals with the core vocabularies, and we are also reusing Eurovoc. So this is our strategy of getting our structured data out there and being adopted by bots who scrape the web.
Okay, thank you, Francesca.
Yes.
It takes some seconds, but it will work.
Yes, not light. Yes, easier. Yes, in our territory, we are thanks to this idea, the consortium of the Comuni Trentini are collecting a lot of information from from every kind of municipalities. So now we have, for instance, 3,000 DKTP compliant data set in the European data portal. So this means that we realize that our data is no more a local, not we, but also the little municipalities colleague realize that open data is not a little local stuff, but something that is connected with a global way to put your information in a website, in the net. So we start to look for standard. Otherwise, our data has no value at all. And we start with the core vocabulary handbooks. So where are standard, there is an handbook. So let's see what they say. And we start to do mapping, all this kind of stuff. At one point, we develop a tool in order to approaching this work, because it's a work, actually, and in order to do it in a clean and flexible way for our purpose. Because, we have to find out a way, a kind to explore a cost-benefit scenario for remodeling our data that is not, it's time consuming and so. What connect with the how, this was possible because the consortium of Comuni Trentini choose this kind of approach. Open source platform, API centrality, web service approach, and microservice as building block. So also the tool can produce microdata easily. I hope, yeah, you know. No, we are doing it, but you know.
Okay, thanks. Actually, from both, I've heard that it's standards that you are looking for. So standards is an important, let's say, asset in this exercise. I think that this is where Norbert perhaps could jump into our discussion, because from the publications office point of view, perhaps we have an organization that could have some quite interesting offerings, let's say, for cases like in Trento or in Flanders, where public administrations are looking for good quality standards. So, Norbert?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, so just introduce the organization I'm representing here. So I'm working in the publications office of the European Union, which is an EU body that is in charge of, is the publishing house of the EU, if you want to call it like that. So we publish tenders, all the legal information, general publications, data, etc. And so perhaps you know the brands like Eurlex or TED or Cordis, which is for research data, or clearly the EU Open Data Portal, which I represent. Once you start, let's say, with the responsibility to run those websites, you also realize very quickly that you have the responsibility to define and maintain metadata, the reference data, sorry, and which we use in your production processes and dissemination processes. And then also from there is a very short step to understand what you are doing can actually be reused by a lot of other people. And initially we started this reuse action with other EU institutions and then with member states. So for instance, Luxembourg reuses partly the Eurovoc, what I'm going to talk afterwards, but also there are a lot of agencies. The Europa website of the EU is going to use Eurovoc, etc. So what I would like to offer to you is to briefly tell you what we offer in terms of reference data and how they can be reused, because we operate under the principle of the reuse decision of the Commission. That means the output is free of charge for commercial and non-commercial reuse. So you can take it. And we also, because the question was raised beforehand, we also assign URIs or DOIs to European institutions. So if a European institution in the room, an agency, we have a schema for assigning those. So what do we offer? Overall, we have 70 controlled vocabularies at the moment. That means which you can use, for instance, for value lists, etc. So if I would have to group them, I would say there are a lot of universal ones, like languages, like countries, like currencies, like formats, like MIME types, etc., which you can reuse. Then we have some which are very EU specific. So institutions, legal procedures, decision-making procedures, courts, type of documents used in those procedures, etc. And then we have some very specific ones which we actually developed, for instance, in the context of DKDP, which has been mentioned now a few times. So, for instance, all the value lists behind are actually maintained in the majority, not all, but in the majority by the Publications Office. I just to mention a few of those. So the themes, the theme schema which is used in DKDP, events, target audiences, etc. Another product which I would like to mention is Eurovoc. Eurovoc is a thesaurus developed for describing activities of the EU, so of the decision-making process. But it has the advantage, it's very broad and multidisciplinary, and it's in 24 languages. So it has about 7,000 terms, but it would allow you really then to also to jump between languages. And it's on a relatively high level, so you cannot index very deeply, but it would allow you somehow to get very quickly a picture of it. And just to give you one example of what actually multilingual URI-based indexation would mean, that if I look now, for instance, Open Data Portal, and I type in the Italian word for aqua, for water, I would get also back everything which is indexed under water, or the O in French, etc. So really would look for the concept and not for the string any longer. That's the power behind. I also mentioned twice, so the third one is specifications. So we are co-chairing the whole discussion about DKDP. We also strongly involved in DCAT AP, in STAT DCAT AP, so the mapping or the crosswalk, if you want to call it like that, between the data world, portal world and the statistical world. And we maintain behind the value list. And just one technical remark. So I mentioned beforehand that they're all multilingual. All the reference data are available in SCOS. So we started initially in XML, but now they're available in a semantic web language in SCOS. So.
Okay, so perhaps one message that we could communicate from this is that if you are looking for some data standards or some kind of reference data, and you are looking and you are working in projects similar to that of Trendo or the Flemish project, then please take a closer look to what the Publications Office has to offer you, because it offers you for free. Perhaps this is something that I'm not sure whether it has been mentioned. So it's the use of all these assets, information assets and standards is free. So you can use it for any reasons, I guess also even commercial reasons. And also, all these assets are professionally maintained by someone. So basically, you save also resources because you don't do it yourself. You have an authority that actually does this for you and provides all this for free. So I think it's one of the best sources of finding reliable data standards that you can use in similar projects. Moving to the third topic of this panel, which is challenges, because I'm quite sure that as you are really paving the way, so what you are doing now, trying to transform, let's say, the unstructured web content that you provide already into structured public sector information and data, has several challenges. We would like to listen from you. What are the challenges basically that you face? Perhaps we could start from Norbert and just to change this a little bit.
Just change the order. And also because it would also allow me to link to some of the points which I mentioned beforehand. Because for me, one of the major challenges we see is governance. So really how to govern those reference data. It's clear to your big surprise, because I've heard the word already very often today. And because we all know, and we also notice in the institutions, the temptation is very high to quickly find a shortcut, to find a quick solution. And then the mess starts as soon as you realize you have to maintain those metadata. You have somehow to open up the community. And that's where an organization like ours would come into play, because it can ensure a lot of those aspects of governance. And if I would look now into what I think what we already managed relatively well today is you have this, let's say, the body which is stable. You have a community of users behind. You have users meetings. I mentioned beforehand we have the URI schema, which we have also been maintaining now. We have procedures for quality control, for change management. So all this works very well. Where I see now where a kind of aggregation of the challenge comes into play is the speed. It should go quicker. You can very quickly lose actually let's say, the enthusiasm of your target audience if you're not doing it quickly enough. Another one is you need a critical mass. And sometimes I'm not quite sure if you have reached this critical mass, because you can measure it simply that you don't have enough awareness. So you, as the body who drives this kind of governance process, you have to continuously somehow expand the number of users, so that people simply know, if I search for a solution for my problem, I can look actually first there, and it would not even come to my mind now setting up once again an authority list for languages for member states if I know it's maintained. So that's one. That's another topic which I would see. So yeah, it's those.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, good. And yes, there are a lot of challenges, of course. And you know, what I want to say is connect with, of course, cultural change and the kind of resistance to change. You know, the fact is that data-driven economy and society is not an option. This is not so easy to understand and to find out a way in which, for instance, also a little municipality of 800 inhabitants can be part of this big challenge. This is the challenge of this century, so we have to find out a way to take everybody in this challenge. So, for instance, portal can be one way very close to also that little municipality. So we have to find out a new role for the public administration to help every little piece of this huge network to be inside this challenge, this data-driven society. And what we have to try to force, to enable, is the idea that our data has value if go out of every kind of looking context, organizational, technological, linguistic, ontological. You know, we have to find out a way to open and move data in this way. So portal can be a very effective way to show this.
Well, I totally agree with Francesca that a cultural change is essential. Now, in addition, we face two extra challenges in the region of Flanders, and they are on the level of a broad consensus and also benchmarking cost-benefit analysis. So, if as government administrations consider annotating their government portals in order to provide better public services, we need to assess like the timeliness and also the economic value of this strategy. So in order to gather like a coalition of the willing on a political level, we need to develop kind of a systematic approach for calculating and comparing the benefits and the costs. So this is one additional challenge. The other additional challenge we face in the region of Flanders is on the level of openness and participation. So we believe that the key innovation is a combination of working bottom-up, so working on a more consensus-based bottom-up approach, and combining this with a top-down approach where we can anchor our decisions on a political level. So, to address this challenge, we are working on a process which we use to create or to extend existing standards. And the process we follow in Flanders is aligned on the process of international standardization organizations, and we are quite fond of the principles of open stand, where we work on the due process, broad consensus, transparency, and also openness to reuse standards and to extend existing standards.
Okay, thank you. So if I could summarize perhaps, or try to identify the most important messages here for the challenges, I would say the cost benefit and economic value, which is very important. Also, it also linked with the consensus building process. I think it was amazing what we have heard in the morning session by Yannick, if I'm not mistaken, about the years that you have calculated. So things like this that could somehow quantify, let's say, the benefits. So this is important. But having methodologies, let's say, to prove the benefits is important. Then another thing that I have noted here is governance. I have heard it from, I think, the three of you, how important this practices and coordination also at the national or even the European level. The links perhaps with international standardization activities, because this is also particularly important. It doesn't make sense to create our own standards when international standards exist already, obviously. And the cultural change that was highlighted by I think, all of you also, that is quite important. We're moving to the last question, which just try very briefly to tell us what are the results that you have so far. So what have you achieved, although we do know that it's still at the early process of this project, and you will still have results perhaps to present even more in the next SEMIC conference, but for the time being, just give us a flavor of how it looks like.
Yes. We are proposing, actually, we are working, in this work we are working and proposing a core VOC for public events. Why public events? Because we need something that immediately speak of ourselves, that immediately speak of something that is very important for the municipalities. So events, public events organized by little community are very, very important for them to understand what standardization means. Because you can, okay, let's see. So this is one. Then we have developed a crowdsourced methodology involving NGOs in collecting data in the portal, standardized, good data, standardized data, in the portal about public event they organize in the municipalities. So the little NGOs became part of this cultural change. They understand what a standard means. Okay? And we are sharing our work with Flanders in order to check and see how much this is working out of our borders, you know, if it works. And actually it looks like that it works, you know, because you know, some data have different value. For a little administration, for instance, public administration, touristic, and you know, all this kind of stuff is very important.
Okay, thank you. Well, together with the ISA² Programme, the region of Trentino and the city of Ghent, who's also present here on the conference, we have developed a mapping between the ISA core vocabularies and also schema.org. So the final outcome will be the publication of this formal mapping. Now, what have we've done? We've applied this mapping between schema.org and the core vocabularies and used it to annotate our portals, so the portal of Flanders and the city portal of the city of Ghent. And we used it to annotate data, to annotate structured information on public services, on addresses and opening hours. So we published, so we have a formal mapping, we published the information, and now together with the ISA² Programme, we try to have a dialogue with the major search engines, because we would like to know in what extent they can adopt public sector metadata, and in what extent they can adopt it in their knowledge graph.
Okay. Norbert, could you please also say something on how people use the PO?
Okay, so I think for DKAP we can summarize in one line. I think it turned out to be a success, and we have seen it this morning, so I'm very happy about that one. For EuroVoc, we are approaching at the moment the phase of expanding it. So we already have thesaurus alignments which have been established, and the thesaurus alignment means I map somehow the terms in my thesaurus with the terms in another thesaurus, and that has been done already to different vocabularies. So in agriculture, it has been done in economics, it has been done in some other domains which which we can also talk about bilaterally. So if you're interested in aligning also your thesaurus to Eurovoc, because it will be useful for your organization, please get in touch with us. And then also the tool which you use for aligning it, which is open source, it's called Workbench. It's also free for reuse. So we very much invite you to have a look at it. You can reuse it, and you can also be part of the user community. And it comes with the whole validation process behind, and also thanks to ISA², has also been co-financed by ISA². We want to show also how much power can be in integrating data semantically. So we do at the moment some projects on budgetary transparency. So visualizing, for instance, budget data, financial transparency system, and we would also very much like to go down this road and show how you could also aggregate, for instance, integrate data about research financed by the EU, because you know it's also a major challenge to actually understand what is the impact of research money which has been given to the Joint Research Center, agencies, internal spending, etc. And just as a closing remark from my side, we will have put all this metadata, reference metadata under one site as of 2018, which is going to be called EU Vocabularies. So I hope that next year by that time we can already unveil the site and present it to you. Thank you.
Okay, I think that this is quite interesting of creating one central, let's say, web portal for as a reference metadata place. We understand that there are already some tools that have been developed and perhaps can be reused by others. All these tools are available for free also, just to mention it. Also some specifications in the case, for example, of events that have been created also and tested in different environments. There are also mappings that have been created and are available also for all the people that want to reuse. But I think that what is really even more important than this is this experience that you have gained by working together also from two different countries, checking a little bit also the approaches. And I think that this is also a fundamental message also from the ISA program. I think that you have several regions all over Europe doing more or less and having more or less the same or similar problems, but usually they work in isolation, while there is huge opportunity, I believe at least, for collaborating, coming closer, sharing experiences. So I'm quite sure that perhaps out of the audience now we could find also some other people that are working in quite similar projects. I think that this is also an invitation for people to contact perhaps the ISA program and be more involved, actively involved in this pilot. So I guess that Susanne Vigard would be happy to get in contact with you if you think that you are working in similar directions and you could join forces with our speakers here. Okay, so that was all for the panel. I just want to use this occasion also to promote a little bit an event that 6 European universities organize this autumn in Thessaloniki. So it is a Chief Information Officer training. It is 6 universities from 6 countries that join forces to organize this event in Thessaloniki, Greece. We have already many speakers that have confirmed, amongst them also the Deputy Director General Mario Cabolargno for European Commission Digit, but also speakers from other countries. Some of you are already here. So the event is free of charge. The target audience is IT managers working for the public sector. So it is, as I said, free of charge, but as it is organized by a university, you don't have the funds to cover travel expenses, so you just need to cover your own expenses if you want to join this training in Thessaloniki this October. More information on a leaflet over there, and if this has finished, you can contact me. So thank you very much.